So I had a couple videos get a lot of attention because I was talking about how I work 13 to 14 hours per day consistently on my social media marketing agency. Now there's a little story I wanted to tell you about how I got up to that point. And it's not one of the things I've talked about in my other videos, which is incentive, which is basically, you work with a buddy, you both put money on the line, you make bets with each other, you have to be honest with yourself, but you make bets with each other, X dollars if I don't do X, Y, Z or Z thing in, whatever time frame it is. And then if you fail to, work 9 hours of solid work within a day or something like that, you lose money and that kind of thing. I'm not going to talk about that because I basically just explained all of that there. I'm talking about something else. Also with that one, quick little tip, if you're going to do that, start small, start with something manageable, 4 or 5 hours a day, incrementally increase over every, 8 weeks or something like that, because you'll experience 1 to 2 weeks of growing pains every time that you do it. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about is a story about how I grew up to I used that strategy to get up to 9 to 10 hours a day of work consistently. And then from there, I had a different strategy. It wasn't even much of a strategy that got me to 13 to 14 hours a day. However, one of my clients right now, Christian, he runs a real estate social media marketing agency. He's going through number 2 right now. He didn't even really have to do number 1, which is the incentive plan, in order to work more hours faster. And at the end of the day, I'm only really talking about how to get up to 10 hours a day of consistent work, because if you can work 10 hours a day, 5 days per week, take a 1 hour lunch break, that's 45 hours of actual solid work per week, if you're being honest with yourself, that is, and you're not scrolling on your phone and everything like that. You can get to 100K a month doing that. It just happens faster if you work more hours, which is why I do that. So for the story, we're going back to October of 2022, which actually wasn't even that long ago. I'd been at about $25,000 a month in my agency, and basically I had started running my YouTube ads. And one thing that has happened, or that had happened at the time, so I was doing, like I said, about I think like 10 or so hours per day of work, and I couldn't push myself to do 12, 13, 14 hours a day. Basically what had happened was I started running my YouTube ads. If you haven't run YouTube or Google ads before, you may not know that it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for them to optimize and really lock in. More like 4 weeks, sometimes less, whatever. So what had happened is I started spending, I don't know, it was like $200 a day, $150 a day, something like that, $150 a day. And at first my lead cost was like over $100, and I was like, okay, I'm terrified, but anyway, I wanted to wait a little bit longer. I was working with a coach at the time. He was saying, just wait, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. So I waited a week. Ad costs started to taper down, $60, $70. I'm calling all my leads, booking my sales meetings. I'm getting some meetings here, some meetings there. Things were going well. And then, fast forward another, week, same kind of thing. Lead costs are going down to like $40, something like that. Getting more and more leads. So I'm satisfied. I'm like, nice. Another week later, I closed my first deal. I'm profitable on the ads. Very nice. Things are looking good. And then everything went crazy. And what I mean is, within 7 days, I went from having about 25 leads to follow up with every day to having 80. And it was increasing by 10 per day. So it went 25, 35, 45, 55. And they're like, oh God, like I can't keep up. I go and make calls on the weekend, hopeless. I booked myself more sales meetings, which was a good thing, but it was completely hopeless. Now we're stepping into November of 2022, and I am stressed out of my mind. Because what happened is I'd been getting more calls, I'd been getting more sales, I'd been getting more clients to deal with, and I was still doing most of my client work on my own at that point. Things were like really getting crazy. The work was getting out of hand, and there was a lot that was happening. And from there, the leads just kept on piling up, and my lead cost got cheaper and cheaper, down to like $12 per lead kind of thing. And so I'm sitting here getting like so many new leads per day that I just couldn't keep up with it. And all these leads, I couldn't make all the phone calls, and working weekends, can't keep up with the phone calls. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I have no choice but to hire an appointment setter, because it's a losing battle, right? I'm just gonna drive myself insane. I'm gonna lose sleep. Like, it's gonna be a complete nightmare. Everything just happened so fast when the ads just dialed and locked in, that I just couldn't keep up with everything. So at this point, I'm working frantically like crazy. I'm working like 70 hours a week, and like things are just going completely wild for me. So I did end up getting an appointment setter, excuse me. And so he was working, setting appointments, doing amazing, setting me a boatload of appointments. And that had helped me so much because I didn't have to worry about calling all these leads and keeping up with them. He was doing a good job of doing that. So that was really good. And then, things kind of balanced out. They were nice, for a couple weeks into the rest of November. And then things got horrible again. Since he had been booking me so many sales calls, I was closing a ton of deals. And I was still I had a VA who would help me launch client accounts. I was still the guy looking into my clients' accounts every week and, doing all of the main client work. And it was just horrendous, right? Because now my sales calendar's packed. I've got this guy setting appointments for me that I need to talk to and train. I had to recruit the guy before, which was a nightmare on its own. But now I have all these clients to deal with. I'm getting 10, 15 text messages a day from clients that I have to respond to, and then I'm getting literally 20, 30, 40 new emails per day to look at, between calendar bookings, between invoices, between client requests and questions, whatever it was. Just craziness was going on. At that point, I had to turn my ads off in January, hire a guy, Nick. Some of you may have emailed him, but he's basically my operations assistant / client success manager. He does pretty much all of my client work now. That took a huge amount of work and stress off of my plate. But what had happened in all of this was the second way to work more, which is what I call force by workload. So you give yourself so much work to do that you have no choice but to do the work. Because I had experienced stress headaches a little over a year ago. And I'd get headaches all the time, and I found that the number one thing that would alleviate my headaches was working more, because it would allow me to keep up with the workload. And stress, I found working more reduced my stress a lot. So I just naturally wanted to work more. And then, eventually what happens is I'm working 65 hours a week in 5 days when I'm taking my Friday evenings off to go and see my girlfriend. But now I'm working 13 to 14 hours a day, consistently and reliably. So long story short, there are two ways that you can work more. One is through incentive or through punishment, right? In partnering up with somebody, putting some money on the line or something like that, or, saying you'll donate to some cause you hate, which some people have done. If you fail to meet your criteria with yourself, which you, again, have to be honest with yourself to succeed with. And then the second one, again, is just forced by workload. You have no choice but to work more, which is what Christian's going through right now. He's got a ton of stuff to do. He just has to work more. He just has to make sacrifices in his life. And it's way easier when it's either, it's do or die. It's make this thing work, or, play video games in the evening. It's way easier just be well, I've got so much going on for me here that it would be stupid if I were to go and play video games in the evening. Whereas when you're starting out and you don't have, that much work to do, it's harder to push yourself to work more when there's not much going on, there's not much to keep up with. So those are the two ways that you can get up to 10 hours per day in working on your SMMA.